the topic for today is basically what happens when you reach a plateau or like a barrier. And specifically, I think we maybe take this down the strength path, and we'll get there in a second because I think it's an easy thing to measure, because that's the first thing that came to mind for him. And the first thing that came to mind for me when we were talking about this was, yeah, that's the thing. Like, my strength is still getting better. It's not happening at the same rate it was, but it's still moving. And I would expect that for the guy, because the types of workouts he was doing before, he was already put together, right? Like, but he hadn't done anything probably quite as structured as the strong program. As he's moving and as he's moved through, he's recognized some serious gains there at a lot of levels. Like, the first thing he told me is like, dude, my posterior, my backside strength, everything from my pulls to my hinges, deadlifts, everything went up at that point. As soon as that stuff started getting better, every single one of my lifts went up. My point being is, as he's seeing these strength gains, at this point, they should be slowing down a little bit, but we're just kind of checking in like, well, how much and kind of what are you feeling? So the conversation was more about, should I just kind of move through into another 4 weeks of this, or try out another 4 weeks, maybe changing some of the bigger exercise selections, that being like my squats and the types of squats I'm doing. Maybe I just change that up, change the stimulus a little bit and see how it goes. I go, it's a great idea. Like, go try that, and then again continue to track the objective stuff, but pay real close attention to the subjective stuff, the subjective things. And then we were kind of just talking about, okay, so once that's done, what do I move into? Because we would expect things are going to slow down. And that being said, that's what people would consider like a plateau, right? Like, this plateau is this word that's been around for a long time, and it's the most annoying, frustrating, most feared thing in any exercise or fitness program, right? As you're moving through stuff. I mean, you're doing the work and you want to get paid, right? You want that payback. And when you're not getting it, it drives a lot of things. It drives behaviors, it drives decision-making, and, all kinds of stuff, which we talk about a lot on the show. So just breaking through that barrier, or how do you know when you've really reached one? And being able to identify that. So I think we maybe just talk a little bit about like, what could a plateau mean? Like, how do you maybe define it? Maybe I just kind of did in a lot of words there, but how do we define it? And then how do we know if we're at a plateau?
I was just thinking, as you're talking about this, it really helps me, there's a lot of ways. There's like these two different types of people in these situations. There's kind of the people who, are they really plateauing? Like, are they too antsy to like get into a new program? Like, kind of like this, like, oh, I'm finished with the program. I'm just going to get into the next thing. And they're kind of too antsy to jump or actually give the merit to a program and actually grind through it. Because as you're training for a longer period of your life, like, the strength gains and the progressions are going to slow down. They're going to be micro progressions. They're going to be, more advanced lifters. They're happy if they can add like 10 pounds to their deadlift in a year. Yep. Right. And so it's not when you have those first initial like newbie gains where you're really, really progressing quickly and feeling that it's kind of finding that balance of how do you actually stick with the plan and grind. But then on the other side of the spectrum, there's the person who maybe does the same thing for too long. Yep. So it's kind of really hard to find that sweet spot of like, have you actually given it the old college try of trusted the process? Because it's not, oh, I got frustrated because I tried the same weight 2 weeks in a row. That's a plateau. I'm not progressing. Right. That's not necessarily a plateau.
Correct.
But if you've been doing the same program, which that we've talked about, the individuals who like go and they know their machines and they know their weights and they know their reps and they go in and do the same thing for months on end or years on end, that's where like, okay, let's have a conversation about, are you actually plateauing? Are you actually trying? Like, how can we progress you from there? And for some people, it is like actually just first thing is maybe are you getting into an actual structured program like Strong, like Max, because those programs having actual like components of a progressive plan, that can be the biggest thing that can be a game changer for really both of those parties, but beneficial for both. So.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of things there, and I love all of it. There's so many takeaways, and I think they'll come up later in the conversation, just as how we kind of carve things out and like, what are some things to break through if you are indeed at a plateau. But I think recognizing what that is and how that looks for you is an important piece. Like, there has to be some awareness there. And so you mentioned some things about like, are you really at a plateau? How do you know? What does your history kind of look like? So I brought up John, and I'm proud of John because he's put in a lot of work, and I know it took a lot of patience for him to kind of settle into the program to obviously start to see the results. But then when he did, he was like, holy shit, like this is really great. And I was like, just keep doing the thing, man. Like, there's a lot of time left in front of you. And so that impatience piece is part of it. There's also, you mentioned the term mundane, I think is what you used there. And that is whether that's how you're feeling, or that's kind of the effect that you've created for yourself based on what you're comfortable with and what you're used to, or what's available to you in the gym or in your garage gym or whatever else. That's another factor. And so what being on the structured program, being on a more structured program that is measuring these things and it's calculated, can be very important for you to look back and again, identify, have I reached a plateau or not? And I bring up the strength piece only because, again, I think that's an easy one. It's an easy metric to measure, right? And I think that's what most people are kind of looking at. Like, how many plates am I putting on the bar? How many, what does the number say on the side of the dumbbells or whatever else? So versus, calculating things like volume, right? Yeah. And really measuring intensity. Like, what does that look like against recovery? And that starts getting into this place where people are like, dude, that's just too much. I just want to work out, bro.
Yeah.
And I get that. But by not doing those things, then it goes to those other behaviors you just mentioned, like just falling into this routine where you're not really giving your body a different stimulus. You're later in your workout, quote unquote, career, where you are just kind of doing the same things that feel good, or they've gotten you results in the past. And there are lots of dials to turn and toggles to switch, but because you haven't done a lot of things, or mainly you haven't tracked or been on any kind of an organized, well put together program, you don't know what to do. So you just kind of start. The first thing I think people do when they hit this like sticking spot, like my strength isn't going up, right? They start to add more on, which is like, in a lot of cases, can be the worst thing for somebody, is to add more on. Sometimes if you are working out at a high level of volume or with high level of intensity, sometimes backing off and recognizing a few other things. So one of the examples that comes up for me is like, a lot of times we get clients in here that have been working out consistently for long periods of time in their life. They're in their late 30s, maybe in their 40s, and they're coming like, yeah, I've been doing this thing and I really haven't seen much. But then when we start to talk to them about it, or like even when we take them out there on the floor for like maybe their first group workout or their first couple group workouts, or, in one of our group classes, or they're in a personal training session, like when I start with somebody, I'll go, hey, go pick up a weight that you think you can do 10 repetitions with, right? For this particular movement. Let's just say it's like a incline dumbbell bench press, right? And they go over to the dumbbell rack and they pick up 12.5s. And they get down on I go, get what you would typically use, what you what you use when you work out, or where you've been. If this is a person that's been working out semi-consistently, and they go over and pick up a set of 12.5s, and I see them just bang out, 10 reps like it's nothing. And I'm not saying like if you're using 12.5 pound dumbbells to do your incline bench press, you're sorry. I'm just saying, like, I look at that and I go, well, here's a problem, right? You're picking what's comfortable for you versus what you should be doing in order to progress. So this happens a lot when we have people come in from some of these other companies that do these group workout type things, are sort of franchised, and you see them all over the place, and they come in and they've reached a point where they're not progressing anymore. When they first started that program, just by sheer activity, and maybe they were new to it, they were getting the newbie gains. They were getting, just because they were giving themselves a stimulus, they were getting that until it didn't work anymore. And so they're just comfortable because that's what's available to them, or that's what they're seeing everybody else doing, and they're picking things that aren't going to provide them, again, a stimulus that's going to progress them to a next level at any level. So you're burning some calories. And so if you're just looking at your watch and trying to get into the orange zone, okay, maybe you can do that with the 12.5. But if you're looking to build strength, right, resiliency, increase capacity, change your body, yeah, you're aesthetically, strength is a great place to do that, because it will impact all of those things if you are on an organized strength training program. So there's that population of people that we see. It's like, okay, well, you're just choosing to do the same things over and over again, because
basically going through the movement.
It's what you're doing. You're going through the motion. So the going back to the doing the work and getting paid part, okay, you're doing some work, but what's the quality of the work that you're doing?
I always give the example with, especially with I think our group class clients are the more where we see this a lot. Yep. And I always give the example of like, just being in here and doing anything is a lot harder than not being on the couch, right? So like, yes, doing the Bulgarian split squat body weight, like you feel like you're doing something. And there is a capacity too, is like when you're trying to progress to the plateau of, or get stronger, that yes, there is some degree of like, hey, I used to pick up these 15s and they felt heavier. Now these feel a little lighter. But a lot of it too is also like learning to push that you actually just have the ability to do more. You can actually like trust your strength. It's not necessarily sometimes 100 pounds is still going to feel like you're holding 100 pounds. It's still work, but your body is capable to push and actually do that. So there's like, that's where a lot of it is like a psychological component too, of not just like you said, going through the motions. Doing something is good, moving is good, but are you actually like really ramping up your ability and your output week to week and over a duration of time, right? So